The stars glittered coldly in the vastness of space as the alien fleet, a formidable armada of warships and technological marvels, made its way toward Earth. To them, the planet was nothing more than a primitive world, a mere speck in the grand cosmos, ripe for the taking. For centuries, the alien empire had conquered planet after planet, their AI-driven fleet decimating civilizations far more advanced than the one they now faced. Humanity was no different in their eyes, a species barely beyond the Stone Age in terms of technology, too weak and divided to pose any real threat. The Empire's warships were sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that could turn entire cities to dust in an instant. Their AI commanders were brilliant, processing vast amounts of information in the blink of an eye, predicting and strategizing to ensure victory. Yet, as the fleet approached the Earth's atmosphere, a strange sense of unease began to spread among the invaders. They had faced countless species before, all of them falling like dominoes before the might of the Empire. But Earth, for some unknown reason, felt different. Something about the human race sparked a reaction in the air. Their flagship, a massive, dark vessel, led the fleet as it pierced the outer layers of Earth's atmosphere, undeterred by the thin clouds below. The Empire was confident that the humans were still unprepared for such a sophisticated assault. They had been watching Earth for decades, observing, collecting data, and making assumptions. It had all seemed so easy, until the first moment of contact. Without warning, a violent tremor shook the flagship. The entire ship seemed to lurch as a series of deafening explosions rippled across the hull. The AI on board scrambled to process the anomaly, but by the time it realized what was happening, the damage was done. The ship's massive shields flared brightly, but the energy from the explosions was far too much to contain. The alien crew panicked as their sensors picked up something they hadn't anticipated. An unknown form of weaponry had disabled their advanced technology. The alien fleet had entered Earth's orbit expecting a peaceful landing, but they had walked straight into a trap. Hundreds of orbital bombardment satellites, hidden in plain sight, disguised as ordinary space debris, had been activated the moment the fleet entered range. The humans had been preparing for this invasion for years, hiding their true strength, knowing that they would need to fight an enemy that outclassed them in every way. These satellites, equipped with quantum disruptors, sent powerful bursts of energy that overwhelmed the alien shields, tearing through their technology with frightening precision. The flagship groaned under the assault, its metal groaning and twisting. Inside, the alien officers scrambled to gain control, their calm demeanor faltering as panic began to set in. The AI commander, typically cold and calculating, found itself struggling to make sense of the chaos. For the first time in its existence, the AI couldn't predict the outcome. Earth had more than just physical weapons, it had outsmarted them. From their command center deep within the heart of Earth's military base, a human strategist, General Sarah Dunn, watched the battle unfold with cold, focused eyes. She had spent years preparing for this moment, building defenses the Empire couldn't possibly comprehend. Her military tactics, combined with the world's top scientists, had created this moment, a massive ambush that would test the invaders' arrogance. General Dunn had known all along that humanity could never defeat the Empire with sheer force. But they could outsmart them. They could make the aliens underestimate the very species they thought would be easy prey. And now, as the alien fleet staggered under the bombardment, Dunn's plan was working better than even she had hoped. Inside the alien flagship, the commander watched in disbelief as the massive warship began to break apart under the unrelenting barrage. His AI assistant, usually so efficient, was now sending confused data, unable to process what was happening fast enough. The commander's mind raced. How could this happen? How could these primitive creatures, these mere insects in the grand scheme of the universe, have such advanced technology? The Empire's fleet was huge, and it carried with it the power to raise entire civilizations. But now, as each ship was hit and disabled, their massive vessels lost power, turning from mighty weapons of war into vulnerable hulks drifting in space. The aliens were not used to failure. They had conquered countless worlds, each more advanced than the last. Earth, in their eyes, was nothing more than a stepping stone, a way to further their dominance. But now, Earth had become their greatest challenge. The fleet's commander ordered an immediate retreat, but it was already too late. The human forces were already prepared for this. Smaller human ships, equipped with cloaking devices and guided by the same quantum disruptor technology, began to ambush the aliens from all directions. The invaders, still reeling from the initial shock, found themselves surrounded, unable to regain control of their own ships. The human military knew that they couldn't afford to waste this opportunity. Every moment was precious. They had studied the aliens, their tactics, their weaknesses. And now, it was time to exploit them. The war had begun, and humanity was no longer the underdog. As the humans attacked from all angles, the once proud alien fleet began to fall apart. The flagship, which had once been a symbol of the Empire's unstoppable might, was now listing heavily, struggling to stay afloat. Inside, the commander's voice cracked as he gave orders that were ignored, the AI unable to implement his commands fast enough. His fleet was crumbling. The Earth, a tiny blue planet, was proving far more dangerous than he had ever anticipated. The explosions continued to rip through the alien ships, each blast sending shockwaves through the remaining fleet. The humans were relentless, hitting the invaders with surgical precision. The alien commanders on the ships, once so confident, so sure of their superiority, were now desperately trying to maintain order as their ships slowly disintegrated under the bombardment. But the most terrifying realization came when they saw the message from General Dunn herself, broadcast across all channels: "You have underestimated us. Now, face the consequences." The alien fleet knew then that they were not dealing with a weak and primitive species. They were facing something far more dangerous, a species willing to fight, willing to sacrifice, and willing to use their greatest asset, their minds, to defeat an enemy that was far stronger on paper. The alien commander sat back in his chair, staring out into the blackness of space. The damage to his flagship was catastrophic, and his fleet was scattered, broken. He had made a terrible mistake. Earth, once thought to be insignificant, had just delivered a blow to the Empire that would be felt across the galaxy. In the distance, as the human ships closed in for the final strike, the alien fleet began to retreat, but the damage was done. Earth had proven that it would not go down without a fight. The invasion had failed. The underdogs had won. The alien fleet, despite the massive damage inflicted upon them, refused to believe that Earth could truly threaten their dominance. They had suffered initial setbacks, but their confidence remained unshaken. After all, they had conquered entire galaxies with their advanced technology, and no human force could compare to the firepower of their warships, their towering robots, or their nearly invincible AI commanders. They had underestimated Earth once, but now, they were determined not to make the same mistake again. On their flagship, the alien commander sat in a command chair that once radiated authority and now felt hollow. His hands were clenched tightly around the armrests, the glowing control panels before him flickering as the AI systems struggled to regain full functionality. Despite the chaos of the previous battle, the aliens were preparing to strike back, and they were confident that the humans couldn't match their technological superiority. As the alien ships regrouped and readied themselves for another strike, humanity was not sitting idly by. General Sarah Dunn, the architect of Earth's first successful defense, knew that the battle was far from over. The aliens may have had the upper hand in terms of technology, but the humans had something they didn't: ingenuity, adaptability, and a fierce determination to protect their home. Deep within the hidden military base, General Dunn and her team of scientists had been working on the final phase of their counterattack. A weapon so powerful that it could shift the entire balance of the war. It wasn't just about brute force, it was about turning the aliens' own advanced technology against them. The plan, codenamed Phantom Strike, was a combination of cloaking technology and AI hacking. Cloaking technology had been a long-held human dream, one that allowed them to become nearly invisible in space. But it wasn't just about hiding, it was about hacking into the very AI systems the aliens relied on. By turning the aliens' own machines against them, humans could sow chaos in the enemy ranks, causing confusion and disorder among their forces. The final strike began with a sudden, terrifying silence. As the alien fleet formed up to launch their counteroffensive, something strange happened. Their sensors failed. Their comms went dead. For a few seconds, the entire fleet was blind, unable to see anything in the void of space. Panic spread quickly among the alien commanders. What had happened? What was causing their technology to malfunction? It was the humans, and they had just launched their secret weapon. A fleet of small, agile human ships appeared out of nowhere, like ghosts in the dark. They were equipped with advanced cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible to the alien fleet. These ships were not meant for long battles, they were designed for precision strikes. And now, as they appeared out of thin air, they swarmed the alien warships with shocking speed and intensity. The alien warships, once thought to be invulnerable, were now under attack from all sides. The humans were everywhere, firing weapons, launching missiles, and disabling the alien ships with surgical precision. The alien commanders struggled to react, their AI systems still malfunctioning, unable to predict the humans' next move. What had seemed like an easy victory only hours ago was now turning into a desperate fight for survival. As the human ships attacked, General Dunn activated the second phase of her plan, the AI hacking protocol. The human ships weren't just cloaked, they were also equipped with powerful hacking tools that allowed them to infiltrate the alien robots and AI systems controlling the alien forces. The human team had spent years studying alien technology, learning how to bypass their security and turn their own weapons against them. Once the hack was initiated, chaos erupted within the alien ranks. Their towering battle robots, once unstoppable on the battlefield, suddenly froze, their movements jerky and erratic as the human hackers took control. Some of the robots turned on their own forces, while others were disabled entirely. The aliens, once so sure of their superiority, were now facing an enemy that had infiltrated their very machines. The alien fleet was thrown into disarray. Ships collided with each other as the hacked robots ran wild, firing on everything in sight. The once immaculate coordination of the alien fleet crumbled, and for the first time, the aliens found themselves on the defensive. They were no longer the unstoppable force they had once been, they were vulnerable. In the midst of the chaos, one of the human ships, the Horizon Strike, led the charge against the flagship. With its cloaking device engaged, it was nearly impossible for the alien fleet to track it. The ship appeared and disappeared in the blink of an eye, striking the alien flagship with deadly accuracy. Its weapons, enhanced with human ingenuity, tore through the alien ship's hull, sending sparks and explosions in every direction. The alien commander on the flagship struggled to regain control, but it was already too late. The humans had breached his ship's core systems, and the AI systems that had once been his greatest asset were now his worst enemy. His own fleet was in shambles, and his flagship was on the verge of collapse. Inside the Horizon Strike, the crew was a whirlwind of activity. They knew this was their moment. The humans had managed to turn the tide of the battle, and now it was up to them to finish what they had started. The command crew, led by Captain Lucas Kane, worked in perfect sync as they launched a final series of missiles at the alien flagship. The ship's shields, already damaged from the earlier attack, couldn't withstand the assault. A massive explosion erupted as the alien flagship was consumed by fire and debris. The once proud ship, the symbol of the alien empire's might, was now nothing more than a floating ruin. But the victory didn't come without cost. The Horizon Strike had taken heavy damage during the battle. Many of its systems were offline, and the crew had to fight tooth and nail to keep the ship from falling apart. Captain Kane stood at the helm, sweat dripping down his face as he stared at the wreckage of the flagship. "This is only the beginning," he muttered under his breath. The battle was far from over. The alien forces were regrouping, and they were still formidable. But the humans had just proven that they weren't going down without a fight. They had struck back with everything they had, and for the first time, the aliens realized they were not dealing with a species to be underestimated. The tides had shifted, and now, the war was on. The battle against the alien forces had been long, brutal, and costly. Humanity had always been on the back foot, struggling to fight against enemies whose technology far outpaced their own. However, something had changed. The earlier successes, though small, had proven that humanity could not only survive but also adapt in the face of overwhelming odds. General Sarah Dunn and her team of scientists knew that the time had come to shift the balance of power, to develop a weapon that would turn the tide of the war once and for all. The weapon was called the Quantum Disruptor, and it was humanity's secret weapon. A combination of quantum computing, advanced energy manipulation, and human ingenuity, the Quantum Disruptor was designed to disable alien technology on a molecular level. It worked by emitting powerful waves of energy that could break apart the circuits and systems in alien technology, rendering their advanced machines useless. For the first time, humans had a weapon that could fight the aliens on their own level. It wasn't just about brute force anymore, it was about dismantling their technological superiority, piece by piece. The plan was simple but dangerous. The Quantum Disruptor was a massive device, and it had to be transported to a key location behind enemy lines. The only problem was that the alien forces were everywhere. The front lines were heavily guarded, and the human forces had to navigate through a minefield of alien warships, drones, and robots just to get close enough to deploy the weapon. But General Dunn knew that this was humanity's last chance. As the human forces prepared for the mission, there was a sense of uncertainty in the air. They had faced defeat after defeat, and now they were being asked to put everything on the line for a weapon they hadn't even fully tested in battle. But there was no turning back. The Quantum Disruptor was humanity's final hope. Captain Lucas Kane, the leader of the Horizon Strike crew, was chosen to lead the mission. He was a seasoned officer, a veteran of the previous battles, and someone who had earned the respect of everyone around him. But even he felt the weight of the decision. This mission wasn't just about defeating the aliens, it was about survival. He gathered his team, including Bonner, a senior soldier who had fought in every battle since the first invasion. Bonner was known for his bravery and his unwavering loyalty to his team. He wasn't just fighting for victory, he was fighting for his family, for Earth, for humanity's future. The plan was set in motion. Human forces, including the Horizon Strike, infiltrated the alien defenses under the cover of darkness, cloaked ships darting through the void of space like shadows. Their goal was simple: deliver the Quantum Disruptor to the alien power core and activate it. It was a mission fraught with danger, and the risks were high. The alien fleet was closing in, and the humans had little time before the invaders realized what was happening. The journey to the heart of the alien fleet was a tense one. The cloaked human ships moved silently through the darkness, avoiding enemy patrols and taking advantage of every break in the enemy's surveillance systems. The crew of the Horizon Strike knew that they were walking a razor-thin line. One mistake, one slip-up, and they would be discovered. And once that happened, there would be no escape. It wasn't long before the first sign of trouble appeared. A lone alien scout ship, its sensors scanning the area for any signs of intrusion, passed dangerously close to their position. The crew held their breath, praying that the alien wouldn't notice them. Captain Kane, ever calm under pressure, gave a small nod to Bonner, who stood ready to act. The alien ship passed by without incident, and the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. But this was just the beginning. The closer they got to the alien power core, the more dangerous the mission became. The alien forces were beginning to notice anomalies in their surveillance, and soon, they would know that something was wrong. As they neared the alien fleet's main hub, disaster struck. A well-placed trap, designed by the aliens to catch any infiltrators, sprung shut. Alien drones and robotic warriors began swarming toward the human ships, their weapons charged and ready to strike. The Horizon Strike and the rest of the human fleet fought back with everything they had. Laser blasts filled the void, and explosions rocked the space around them. It was a chaotic, all-out battle. In the middle of this chaos, Bonner's team made a bold move. They disembarked from their cloaked ships and boarded an alien vessel, using hand-to-hand combat and advanced technology to disable the ship's defenses. They knew that the quantum disruptor had to be activated in the heart of the enemy fleet, and they would have to get close to the core if they were to have any chance of success. But the further they ventured into the heart of the alien forces, the more they realized just how much they were risking. The stakes were higher than ever before. Bonner, leading his squad with unwavering determination, pushed forward, clearing out enemy forces and fighting tooth and nail to keep his team alive. The human forces were fighting with everything they had. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but their spirit was unbreakable. Each step they took felt like it could be their last, but they moved forward, driven by the belief that this mission would turn the tide of the war. Then, in the midst of the battle, tragedy struck. Bonner, in a desperate attempt to protect his team, threw himself in front of an alien soldier's blast. The shot struck him in the chest, and he collapsed to the ground, his life quickly fading away. His team rushed to his side, but there was nothing they could do. Bonner had given his life for the mission, for humanity's future. His death was a heavy blow to the team, but it also fueled their resolve. They knew that they could not let his sacrifice be in vain. With Bonner gone, the team pushed forward, more determined than ever. The quantum disruptor was finally within reach. They activated the device, and a wave of energy rippled out, cutting through the alien fleet's technology like a hot knife through butter. The alien ships and robots began to malfunction, their systems shutting down one by one. For the first time, the humans had struck a decisive blow. But the victory came at a cost. Bonner's death weighed heavily on everyone. The loss of their comrade was felt deeply by the entire team, and his sacrifice would never be forgotten. As the human forces retreated, the alien fleet in disarray, they knew that this was just the beginning of a long, grueling war. But for the first time in a long time, humanity had hope. They had struck a powerful blow, and they knew that they were capable of fighting back. Bonner's death, though tragic, had given them the strength they needed to continue the fight. The quantum disruptor had worked, and the aliens had been forced to fight their own technology. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. And for humanity, that was all that mattered. The battle was far from over, but now they had a fighting chance. The war was no longer just about survival. It was about winning. The success of the quantum disruptor had shaken the alien empire to its core. For the first time, their forces, invincible in the eyes of their leadership, were brought to their knees by a weapon they couldn't even understand. The human resistance, once thought to be nothing more than a nuisance, had become a true threat. The Empire's grip on the galaxy was weakening, and the leadership of the alien forces was in turmoil. Deep within the heart of the alien fleet, in a massive warship known as the Zenith, the highest-ranking leaders of the alien empire convened for an emergency meeting. Commander Gornak, the alien general who had led the initial wave of invasion, paced back and forth, his mind racing. Gornak had once viewed humans as nothing more than primitive creatures, easy to crush under the might of the Empire's advanced technology. But after the devastation caused by the quantum disruptor and the subsequent attacks, he now found himself questioning his initial beliefs. Gornak had been one of the loudest voices dismissing humanity as insignificant. Now, he stood at the center of a leadership crisis, faced with the harsh reality that his entire strategy had been flawed. The realization hit him like a blow to the chest: the humans were not the weak, defenseless creatures he had once thought them to be. They were resourceful, adaptable, and now, they had a weapon that could neutralize the very technology that had made the Empire so powerful. As he stood in the command center, surrounded by his fellow leaders, Gornak couldn't help but feel the weight of his mistakes. The Alien Council, a group of ruthless and calculating individuals, had been silent during the meeting, their eyes focused on the data feeds showing the continued loss of their fleets and resources. There was a palpable tension in the room, as each leader struggled to maintain control. The once unshakable confidence that had defined the Empire's leadership was now replaced by fear and uncertainty. At the far end of the room, the High Chancellor of the Alien Empire, a creature known as Zarek, sat silently, his cold, calculating eyes fixed on Gornak. Zarek had always been a master manipulator, a puppet master who controlled the Empire's leadership with an iron grip. But even he couldn't deny that the situation was growing dire. His plan to crush humanity quickly had failed, and now he was forced to deal with the fallout. Gornak, Zarek's voice cut through the tense silence. You were certain that this mission would succeed. How do you explain the failures? You've let the humans destroy half of our fleet. Gornak's heart raced, his pride wounded by the rebuke. We underestimated them, he said slowly, trying to maintain control of his emotions. They were prepared. Their technology, it's unlike anything we've encountered. The quantum disruptor, it disabled our weapons, our ships. We never anticipated this. Zarek's gaze turned cold. That is no excuse. You were given every resource, every advantage. And yet, we are on the brink of disaster. His voice rose, becoming more aggressive. We've lost contact with several key sectors. Our fleets are disorganized, and our forces are scattered. The humans have gained the upper hand. As the argument between Gornak and Zarek continued, the rest of the alien leadership sat in stunned silence, watching their empire crumble before their eyes. Some of them were growing increasingly desperate, others seething with anger. But one thing was clear, no one knew how to deal with the humans now. Gornak had been their strongest general, and even he was now admitting that they were losing. Meanwhile, the human forces were not wasting time. General Sarah Dunn and her team were already working on their next move. They knew that the momentum was shifting, but they also understood that the aliens would not go down without a fight. The leadership of the alien empire, now in crisis, was divided and disoriented, but they still had powerful resources at their disposal. Humanity had to act quickly to take full advantage of this moment. The human strategy was as bold as it was dangerous. They had learned from their past mistakes, using deception and misdirection to throw the alien forces off balance. With the quantum disruptor now in their hands, they had the power to disable the alien technology, but they needed to keep the aliens guessing. They needed to create chaos within the enemy ranks, to destabilize their leadership even further. To do this, they would launch a series of feints and distractions. Captain Lucas Kane and his team, still reeling from the loss of Bonner, were tasked with leading the most dangerous part of the operation. They would infiltrate an alien stronghold, pretending to retreat in a way that would lure the alien forces into a trap. At the same time, other human units would create diversions, hitting multiple targets to confuse the aliens and scatter their attention. As Kane and his team prepared for the mission, the weight of Bonner's death still hung heavily over them. It was a reminder of what was at stake. But Kane knew that they couldn't afford to mourn for long. They had a job to do, and if they didn't do it, humanity's chances of survival would dwindle to nothing. Listen up, everyone, Kane said, addressing his team. This is going to be one of the most dangerous missions we've ever faced. But we've got the advantage now. We know what the aliens are capable of, and they're scared. We've got to use that fear against them. Bonner's memory was fresh in their minds as they boarded their ships, the weight of their comrades' sacrifice fueling their determination. This time, they couldn't afford to fail. As the human forces launched their decoy attacks, the alien empire was thrown into complete chaos. Gornak and Zarek argued fiercely, each blaming the other for the disaster. The once unified leadership began to crack, and suspicions grew among the various factions. Some of the alien leaders saw the human success as a sign that they were being outmaneuvered. Others, more desperate, began to question their own leadership. In the midst of this infighting, the humans struck. The feints had worked. The alien forces, spread thin and distracted by the decoys, were unable to respond in time to the real attack. The Horizon Strike, along with other human units, launched a devastating assault on the weakened alien fleet. The timing couldn't have been better. The aliens were divided, their technology crippled by the effects of the quantum disruptor, and their leadership in disarray. The battle that followed was a brutal one. Alien ships, once mighty and nearly invincible, were now falling one by one. Their weapons systems malfunctioned, their drones and robots malfunctioned, and the humans pressed on with relentless determination. For the first time in the war, the aliens were forced to retreat. Back in the alien command center, Gornak's eyes widened in disbelief as he watched the battle unfold on the holographic displays. He could see the defeat in the faces of his fellow leaders, and he realized that they had been bested. The humans, who had once seemed so insignificant, had proved that they were not to be underestimated. Retreat! Gornak barked. We must regroup. The humans cannot be allowed to finish us off now. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and the alien forces, now leaderless and fractured, began to crumble under the weight of their own mistakes. Humanity had struck a decisive blow, and for the first time, it seemed that victory might finally be within their reach. The alien empire, battered and broken by the relentless assaults of humanity, was determined to finish what they had started. After weeks of brutal conflict, the alien forces had regrouped, preparing for a final, all-out assault on Earth. This was their last chance to subdue the human resistance and reclaim control over the galaxy. They had no other option but to throw everything they had at the planet, hoping to crush the human spirit once and for all. On Earth, General Sarah Dunn and her forces had been preparing for this moment, knowing that the aliens would come with all their might. They had suffered so much already, countless battles, the loss of comrades like Bonner, and the constant strain of defending their home. But despite the odds, humanity had managed to survive. They had found ways to adapt, to push back, and now, they were ready for the final stand. The human forces had one final weapon, their defenses, powered to the maximum. The energy shields that protected Earth's cities and military bases had been upgraded to withstand even the most devastating alien weapons. Above the planet, the skies were filled with a massive fleet of human ships, each one brimming with the latest technology. The quantum disruptor, the weapon that had crippled the alien forces in previous battles, was now at full power, ready to disable the alien warships in one swift strike. Sarah Dunn stood at the front of her command center, looking out at the battlefield through the holographic displays. The final assault was imminent. Her face was grim, but there was a fire in her eyes, a fire that could not be extinguished. Her team was ready. The sacrifice of Bonner and others had only strengthened their resolve. Earth's last defense was now in place, and they were not going down without a fight. "They're coming," Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with the weight of the moment. "We hold nothing back. This is the last stand for humanity." As the alien fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, the sky above the planet darkened. Massive warships, each one the size of a city, descended with a terrifying precision. The aliens had come to destroy, and they would stop at nothing. The humans had prepared for this moment, but the scale of the alien forces was overwhelming. The battle that followed would be nothing short of catastrophic. The first wave of the alien assault began with orbital bombardment. The sky was lit up with flashes of energy as the alien ships fired their devastating weapons, trying to break through Earth's energy shields. The human defenses held, but just barely. The shields crackled under the pressure, flickering as they absorbed the powerful blasts. It was a fight for survival, and Earth's last defense was being tested to its limits. In space, the human fleet engaged the alien ships in a brutal dogfight. Ships zoomed past each other, exchanging fire in the blink of an eye. Explosions filled the air as entire enemy warships were obliterated by precise strikes from human weapons. But for every alien ship that fell, more came to replace it. The human fleet was fighting with everything they had, but the aliens had sheer numbers on their side. On the ground, the battle was no less intense. Alien robots, heavily armored and equipped with powerful weaponry, descended upon human cities, intent on causing maximum destruction. But the humans were ready. They had learned from their previous battles, and now, they fought back with a fierceness that the aliens could not have anticipated. Soldiers, armed with advanced energy weapons, engaged the alien robots in close-quarters combat, using agility and speed to outmaneuver their massive enemies. The battle on Earth was chaos, rubble-filled streets, fires blazing in the distance, and the sound of combat echoing through the air. Human soldiers fought alongside their AI allies, using everything at their disposal to fight back. There were moments of brutal hand-to-hand combat, where soldiers engaged alien forces in tight quarters, using knives, energy blades, and even their bare hands to take down the towering enemies. It was a fight for survival, and the humans refused to back down. In one of the most cinematic moments of the battle, Captain Lucas Kane and his team infiltrated an alien stronghold. They fought their way through a gauntlet of alien soldiers, hacking into enemy systems to disable their weapons. The air was thick with tension as they moved stealthily through the enemy base, knowing that one wrong move could cost them everything. The sound of alien footsteps grew louder as they neared their target. When they finally reached it, the sight of Bonner's face, frozen in time on a wall memorial, pushed them forward, each step a reminder of the sacrifice that had brought them here. But the emotional weight of the war, especially the loss of Bonner, weighed heavily on the hearts of the soldiers. As they fought through the alien ranks, their hearts burned with a desire to honor their fallen comrade. Bonner's sacrifice had been the catalyst that had turned the tide in humanity's favor, and now it was up to them to finish the fight. Back in the command center, General Dunn coordinated the defense with a focus that could only come from someone who knew what was at stake. The final wave of the alien assault was approaching, and Earth's energy shields were starting to fail. The human forces had to act quickly, or they would lose everything. The final confrontation was about to unfold, and this time, humanity's survival depended on their ability to adapt and fight back with everything they had. In the midst of the chaos, the moment that everyone had feared arrived, the aliens' final push. Their warships, massive and heavily armed, targeted Earth's remaining energy shields, focusing all their firepower in one last desperate attempt to break through. The human fleet, already battered, was struggling to maintain its ground. But then, the unexpected happened. The quantum disruptor, the weapon that had disabled the alien tech before, was activated once again. This time, its full power surged through the alien fleet, causing massive disruptions in their systems. Ships that had been firing at Earth's defenses suddenly stalled, their weapons going offline. The human fleet, now empowered by the disruptor's effects, launched a counteroffensive, blasting through the now vulnerable alien warships. On the ground, the human forces pushed back the alien robots and soldiers, taking advantage of their disarray. The streets were filled with the sounds of battle, but humanity was no longer on the defensive. They were on the offensive, pushing the aliens back with everything they had left. The final moments of the battle were a blur of action. The alien forces, weakened and confused by the quantum disruptor, were retreating, but they had no escape. The human forces, driven by the memory of their fallen comrades, pressed forward with a ferocity that overwhelmed the remaining alien resistance. The fight was brutal, and many lives were lost, but in the end, it was clear, humanity had triumphed. As the last of the alien forces retreated into the void of space, General Sarah Dunn stood on the battlefield, looking out at the shattered remains of the alien fleet. The Earth had survived. The sacrifices of her soldiers, the pain of losing comrades like Bonner, had not been in vain. The battle for Earth was over. Humanity had won, the war was over. The final battle had been fought, and Earth had won. The alien forces, their once proud fleets scattered across space, had been utterly defeated. But the victory, as sweet as it was, had come at an immense cost. Lives had been lost, entire cities had been destroyed, and the scars of war ran deep. Humanity stood victorious, but the emotional weight of the struggle was impossible to ignore. The survivors, battered but unbroken, looked out at the ruined world they had saved, knowing that while they had won, the true challenge lay in rebuilding and healing. General Sarah Dunn stood on the steps of the command center, looking out over the devastated landscape of Earth. The sky, once darkened by the smoke of battle, was now clear, a symbol of the victory humanity had won. It was a bittersweet moment. The ruins of cities lay in the distance, remnants of the conflict that had changed everything. People had fought and died, but in the end, they had held on to their humanity. They had fought for their survival, for their freedom, and now, they stood on the precipice of a new beginning. Behind her, the leaders of the surviving human factions gathered, all of them sharing a moment of reflection. Earth had been tested like never before, but now, they had a chance to rebuild. And that was the first step in a long journey, a journey of recovery and redemption. There was no going back to the world they had once known. The war had taken too much, and the scars would remain for generations. But humanity had proven something that could not be taken away. They had shown the galaxy that they were not just survivors, they were a force to be reckoned with. As Sarah turned to face her fellow leaders, she saw the same mix of exhaustion and determination on their faces. The alien invasion had been a turning point in history, and now it was time to chart a new course. They had won, but what would the future hold? "We did it," Sarah said quietly, her voice carrying a weight of both relief and sadness. "But the battle for Earth may be over, but the fight for its future is just beginning." One of the leaders, a scientist named Dr. Isaac Pierce, stepped forward. His face was worn from the constant strain of the war, but there was a spark of hope in his eyes. "The question now is, how do we rebuild?" he asked. "How do we ensure that nothing like this happens again?" The group fell silent, each person contemplating the future. They had defeated the aliens, yes, but the scars of war were far from gone. Earth had been pushed to the brink, and it was up to them to rebuild and protect what remained. But even as they spoke of rebuilding, there was one question that lingered in the air: would Earth ever truly be safe again? Across the galaxy, the alien empire, now shattered and broken, was beginning to face its own reckoning. In the wake of their defeat, their leadership had fractured. The once mighty alien generals who had led the invasion now found themselves in the position of having to answer for their actions. They had underestimated humanity, and now, they were paying the price. Some had already fled, seeking refuge in distant corners of the galaxy, while others, realizing the depth of their mistake, began to reach out to the humans. In one of the remaining alien strongholds, the alien general who had once viewed humanity as nothing more than a nuisance now stood before a council of his leaders. His expression was grim, haunted by the events that had led to their downfall. He had seen the power of humanity firsthand, and it had shaken him to his core. "We made a mistake," he said quietly. "We underestimated them. The humans, they are not just survivors. They are warriors, and they will not be so easily defeated." His voice carried the weight of realization, the same realization that had dawned on the alien empire far too late. The humans had fought with a strength and resilience that no one could have predicted. They had not only survived, they had thrived in the face of overwhelming odds. The general's words were not just a reflection of defeat, but a recognition of the human strength. As he spoke, the remaining alien leaders listened in silence. Some still held on to their pride, unwilling to admit the depth of their failure. But others, the wiser among them, understood that their future survival depended on accepting their defeat and seeking peace. The idea of mercy was foreign to them, but they now had no other choice. They had lost everything, and the humans were the only ones capable of offering them any hope for redemption. Back on Earth, the world was beginning to heal. The rebuilding process had already begun, but it would take time. The cities that had been destroyed were slowly being reconstructed, new technologies were being developed, and humanity was determined to make the most of what they had. They had survived the greatest threat they had ever faced, and now, they would use their victory to forge a better future. In the midst of this rebuilding, Sarah Dunn and the other human leaders met to discuss the future of Earth. They knew that the war was not just about winning, it was about ensuring that humanity would never again be vulnerable to such a threat. They discussed new technologies, advanced defenses, and the protection of Earth's newfound strength. They were determined not to let the same mistakes happen again. "We must protect what we have now," Sarah said firmly. "We cannot let our guard down. The galaxy may think we're weak, but we've shown them that we're stronger than anyone could imagine. But we need to prepare for the future." The others nodded in agreement. There would be no more surprises, no more underestimating the strength of humanity. The war had taught them that lesson, and they would not forget it. Earth would not only rebuild, but it would rise stronger than before, ready to face any future challenge. As the meeting ended, Sarah stood by the window, looking out at the world she had fought so hard to protect. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the landscape. Earth was healing, and humanity was beginning to move forward. But there was no forgetting the cost of their victory. The loss of so many, the sacrifices made, and the pain of the war would always be with them. It was a reminder of what they had fought for, and why they had to keep fighting. In the end, humanity had emerged victorious, not just over the alien empire, but over the greatest enemy they had ever faced, themselves. They had learned to adapt, to fight, and to survive. They had shown the universe what they were capable of. And now, as Earth began its rebirth, there was one thing that everyone knew for certain: humanity would never be the same. They had been tested, and they had proven that they could overcome anything. The victory was not just in the defeat of the alien forces, but in the redemption of humanity. The battle had been won, but the war for their future had only just begun.